Hello and welcome back. And by the way, I decided to change my name back to the Otaku Bandito in order to celebrate my 1-year anniversary of making my videos. So, recently there has been a lot of stuff going on in my personal life. Like, for example, the horrors of the Cast Iron Bandito Part 2, the game of the devil, is like taking a long time because, of course, I had difficulties playing the game itself, which is Ride to Hell Retribution, and of course, I had difficulties picking an actor for a fight scene. There's going to be a fight scene at the end where me and Phanto X fight against each other, and then I win the fight, and then Phanto X comes back because he is the spirit that lives inside the mask. And yet, it's a similar idea to Snicks. And yet the horrors of the Cast Iron Bandito is inspired by the idea of Snicks. But there's a lot of differences though. I won't talk about that. But what I am here to talk about is Gran Turismo 6. Alright. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Gran Turismo series, let me give you a brief introduction. First, there was Gran Turismo, the original game, which was released in 1998. And it was the best-selling PlayStation game. Man, was it ever a big deal at the time. And yet, if I were to give it a rating today, I would give it an 8.8 out of 10. And then there was Gran Turismo 2, which was basically an improvement over the original because the controls were better. And of course, a wider variety of cars. And if I were to give Gran Turismo 2 a rating today, I would give it an 8.4 out of 10. Because it's not nearly as good as the original is. Even though the controls are better. Then there was Gran Turismo 3. And oh boy, I have to tell you about Gran Turismo 3. Because it was basically an improvement to the first two original games. Yeah, it was kind of like the Castlevania 4 of the Gran Turismo series. The best game in the series. And yet, it was also the game I remember playing because it was one, believe it or not, one of the first PlayStation 2 games I've ever had. And I was amazed by it. And if I were to give Gran Turismo 3 a rating today, I would give it a 9 out of 10. It's awesome. Then there was Gran Turismo 4, which isn't nearly as good as 3, but it's still a good game nonetheless. And yes, there are a few good songs picked in the soundtrack of Gran Turismo 4, but other songs suck ass. And it's not nearly as good as the soundtrack in Gran Turismo 3. But there are good songs picked in the soundtrack, like Freewheel Burning, like from Judas Priest, and even that song from Van Halen I can't even think the name of. So, yeah, Gran Turismo 4, even though the graphics are better, it wasn't nearly as good as Gran Turismo 3. If I were to give it a rating today, I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. And then there was Gran Turismo 5 Prologue, which was released because Gran Turismo 5 was in development for a long time. And yet, there's not much to say about it. If I were to give it a rating today, I would give it a 6.7 out of 10. So, and then there was Gran Turismo PSP, which was the first portable Gran Turismo game. Not much to say about it. It's basically a portable version of Gran Turismo 4. I would give it a 7.8 out of 10. And then finally there was Gran Turismo 5. And it was basically a disappointment. But it was still an okay game. If I were to give it a rating today, I would give it a 7 out of 10. A disappointing 7 out of 10. It's still an okay game nonetheless. Then, finally, let's exit the introduction, and finally let's talk about Gran Turismo 6, the feature presentation. And oh boy, it was better than Gran Turismo 5, because it had a better variety of cars, not to mention it, and everything else was improved. But we're not gonna talk about it once we do the review. So that's all I need to say. So let's review Gran Turismo 6. So here we are into Gran Turismo 6. Well, basically there's not much to say about this game as of now. So let's talk about some of the things that are good about it. Well, yeah, the customization feature. Well, I expected there to be a livery editor, but no, still no livery editor. But I sincerely hope in a future update they'll include it. But I wanted that feature so bad. Nope, there's still no livery editor. Sad. So, take a look at the cars. In my honest opinion, there's a better variety of cars than there was in Gran Turismo 5. Like, for example, some of the obscure cars in Gran Turismo 4 make an appearance. Like the Auto Union Type C Streamline, which is a cool car because it's a pre-World War II racing car. Well, not technically. It never raced, I think. I think it was a record car. I'm gonna have to look up more about classic cars, because I'm not an expert at classic cars. But I do know some of the famous classic cars, like the Ford Model A, the Hyundai Click, and of course the Hyundai Accent WRC, which is my all-time favorite WRC rally car. And of course the cars that are standard have been updated to include a higher quality look, like the rough 3400S, and probably most of the roughs except for the CTR2. The Nissan 300ZX. The Nissan 240ZG. And of course there's like other cars that have been updated to premium, like the Toyota 2000 GT. But some of the cars from Gran Turismo 5 that are standard don't look nearly as good as they were in Gran Turismo 5, like for example the Toyota Supra RZ. You see, it doesn't look nearly as good as it was in Gran Turismo 5, I think. I mean, come on, you should update it to premium because it's a Supra, man. It should be updated to premium. So that's all there is to talk about the cars. Let's talk about the garage. There's like a new feature added to this game where you can move the cars to the stockyard, which is kind of cool. So let's take, for example, the Scion FRS. Let's select Move to Stockyard. And as it's moving to the stockyard, it says Loading Stockyard. And then you got one car in the stockyard. And then once you come back, it says Saving Stockyard, which means it remembers that the car you have put in there is in the stockyard. Pretty cool feature. Because some of the cars you never use. And if you don't use them, you can simply put it in the stockyard. So let's talk about the game itself. And here we go. Here's a jump cut. So, before we talk about the game itself, let's talk about the menus. In my opinion, the menus look better than the Gran Turismo 5 menus. Like before, you can choose the driving options. You can change the settings of your car. And of course, you can change the different weather. So, let's talk about the game itself. Alright, so we're racing one of my 15th anniversary edition cars, and I pre-ordered the 15th anniversary. Yeah, not to mention, I was excited for the Shelby Cobra Daytona to come back, because that car had appeared in the Gran Turismo game for a long time, since Gran Turismo 2. I'm racing on the Apricot Hill Raceway. Not to mention, other racetracks from Gran Turismo 5 appear, in this game except for Top Gear Test Track. There are also some new circuits like Willow Springs, and of course Silverstone, which I was excited about because I've been waiting a long time for Silverstone to appear in a Gran Turismo game. And not to mention, Test Course comes back as well. Well, it's not technically Test Course, but it's a similar track to Test Courses. Special Stage Route X, which you might know as a DLC to Gran Turismo 5. Yeah, it was included in a DLC in Gran Turismo 5. So yeah, Test Course is still absent, but there's, as I said before, there's a similar track. So yeah, in my opinion, the driving mechanics are improved from Gran Turismo 5, and it's definitely an improvement over Gran Turismo 5. And even the damage physics are well improved. Like for example, there are like realistic scratches and dents, which is pretty cool. And not to mention, things have come a long way since the first Gran Turismo game. And yeah, there's other cars you can race with, like go-karts and all sorts of other cars. So basically, yeah, it's an improvement over Gran Turismo 5. Even the track variety is better. So now we're going on to the conclusion. So, in conclusion, Gran Turismo 6 is an improvement over Gran Turismo 5, and it has taken us a long time for us to get that far. And I give Gran Turismo 6 a rating of an 8.6 out of 10. I don't care what you think, okay? In my opinion, Gran Turismo 6 is an improvement over Gran Turismo 5, and it has like a better variety of cars in Gran Turismo 5, better variety of tracks in Gran Turismo 5, the driving physics are improved, the sorry for me coughing, the damage physics have been improved, and not to mention, it's a better game than Gran Turismo 5, and it's a good game for the PS3 library. But there's still no livery editor, which I sincerely hope they'll include a livery editor in a future update. And not to mention, there's going to be more interesting features in a future update. Like for example, there's going to be like a new and improved track editor, and a feature where you're going to use the route of your GPS to use as a track that you created in the game. There's going to be B-Spec. There's going to be a lot of interesting features in future updates. So hopefully, if one of the future updates come out, I will be reviewing the interesting features. So, for now, I'll see you later. I'm just kidding. Because of course, there's gonna be a new feature of the Otaku Bandito called Question of the Week. So, every week I'm gonna have a question. So, yeah. So here's our question for the week. Being that Gran Turismo 6 is a racing game, so here's a racing game related question. Do you think that Turn 10 Studios should keep making another Forza Motorsport game every 2 years? I don't think so. What's your opinion? I'll see you later, and not to mention, there's gonna be a mystery game that we're gonna review as a Christmas special. Because of course there are not too many Christmas games out in the world. So, I'll see you later.